In the cold hour before dawn, the Viking Chieftain wakes inside his longhouse. The air is still smoky from last night's fire. It sticks to the rafters because there is no chimney, only gaps in the roof where it creeps out. The chieftain rises from his wooden bench bed and pushes aside his fur cloak. The hall is dim with only a soft strip of light slipping through the smoke hole. In the corner, cattle move and snort. They have been kept inside through the winter, their warmth mixing with the smell of ash and peat. The ground is packed earth, scattered with straw and last night's ashes to soak up damp and odor. The chieftain feels the heat of the dying hearth and hears the quiet breath of sleepers. His family and warriors lie close, covered in wool blankets. There is no privacy here, only one room shared by kin, fighters and livestock alike. He swings his legs down and walks softly toward the door, careful not to wake the elder snoring nearby. He pulls aside the animal skin curtain and steps out into the cold morning. The sky is grey as pearl, and a cock's call rings over the village. The sharp air clears his lungs of smoke and stings his skin awake. A trough of water waits by the doorway. He lifts a bronze ladle and pours the chill water over his face and hands. The Vikings keep themselves clean, even holding a bath day each week. He splashes his face once more, knowing that care of the body is expected. Meanwhile, back inside, he turns to the hearth's glow and reaches for his grooming kit. By touch, he finds a comb carved from antler, smooth from years of use. In the half-light, he pulls it through his long hair, working out the knots with care. The comb is prized, as are all such tools in the north. Every Norse household has one, proof of how much they value neat hair and beards. He then lifts a small knife and snips a stray hair from his mustache. Then he takes an ear spoon and clears his ears with care. And in the glow of the fire, others begin to awaken. Some reach for their combs, dragging them through tangled hair and braided beards. Warriors, too, take pride in grooming at dawn. Outsiders call them barbarians, but they are far from unkempt. They are known for being clean, even more so than many neighbors beyond the sea. A bowl of lye soap rests by the basin. It is made from animal fat and ash, carrying a sharp smell. The chieftain rubs the grey soap into his hands with a cloth, working up a soft lather. This same soap is used for hair, and some use it to lighten their locks to a pale red or blonde. But for now, he runs wet fingers through his hair. Then he presses in drops of scented oil gathered from herbs by his wife. The clean smell stays a while, a small gift for the day ahead. These small acts of washing and combing, after all, carry a lot of meaning, for they honor the self and the gods. To be clean is to show respect to Freyr and Thor. With his grooming done, he dresses for labor. He pulls on a plain wool tunic and ties linen trousers at the waist. The clothes are simple, but strong and suited for work. He fastens a belt and slips in his knife, for it's a tool that's always at hand. Then from a peg he takes a Thor's hammer amulet and hangs it at his neck. Bronze against his chest, it is for luck and for safety. The hall grows louder as others wake. Children cough, voices rise, and a goat bleats for its feed. A young woman kneels by the fire and breathes on the embers until flames rise again. Soon the smell of porridge spreads warmly and richly in the smoky air. The household gathers at the fire for the first meal. The chieftain's wife serves porridge from an iron pot containing thick barley that was boiled since before dawn. She has stirred in dried bilberries saved from last autumn. The chieftain takes a wooden bowl and dips old bread into the porridge. The bread is dark and heavy, baked from rye and barley ground on stone. Beside it, he eats salted herring from a clay dish, pulled from barrels kept through winter. Fish is the food of the coast, and most days it fills their bellies. Travelers from far lands even wrote that Viking towns lived almost only on fish. The herring is sharp and salty, cutting through the plain taste of grain. Sometimes they drink goat milk or ale in the morning. Today, however, it is only water drawn fresh from the stream. A small wedge of whey cheese is passed around, and each takes a bite. The chieftain's meal is simple, not grand, but it gives the strength needed for the day's work. Here, food is not wasteful, for it is fuel earned by hard labor. In the meantime, he watches his people as he eats. Children with bowl-cut hair lick porridge from their spoons. His parents chew slowly at their bread, their teeth worn by years. Warriors laugh as they eat, filling themselves quickly. A few of the best men are gone, likely keeping watch at the headland or checking fish traps in the tide. And in the corner, a thrall feeds crumbs to a restless child. For now, the hall is quiet, warm and at peace. The chieftain knows this peace will not last. The day's work waits outside. The morning meal is done, and the sun climbs over the hills. The settlement blossoms with work. The chieftain pulls on his cloak and steps out into the chill. He moves among the people, guiding the day's tasks. His long house stands with timber storehouses, an animal stall for summer, and a small smithy. Beyond these lie the fields which are damp with dew. Spring has come, and the land must be ploughed and sown before time runs short. 2 oxen stand hitched to a heavy plough at the field's edge. Their breath steams in the cold air. The chieftain's eldest son grips the handles. At his signal, a thrall urges the oxen forward. The iron plowshare cuts deep, turning the earth in neat rows. This is the new moldboard plough, learned from southern lands. It is far stronger than the old scratch plough his grandfather once used. Anyhow, the dark soil flips open as it turns rich and ready for seed. The chieftain walks beside them, steadying the first furrows with his hand. It is his right to break ground on his own land. The smell of fresh soil rises noticeably in the air. Gulls wheel overhead, crying as they watch for worms. When the first rows are through, the chieftain leaves the team in the hands of his son and thralls. Then he looks at the sky. Blue patches promise a fair day. Good weather is a gift that must be used. Meanwhile, women and older children follow behind the plough. They scatter barley and rye into the furrows. A little girl laughs and spills her seed too wide. Her mother shows her how to cast it evenly and straight. The grain was saved from the last harvest. Each seed is food for the coming winter. The chieftain calls out to them, praising their work. The women smile, knowing their share in the farm's fortune. When the chieftain sails on raids, it is these women who keep the farm alive. Viking women are known to run land and household with strong hands, so he trusts them fully. Near the pens, thralls fork hay into the enclosure. The milk cows push forward, lowing in hunger. The dairymaid sits on a one-legged stool, milking the led cow into a wooden pail. The streams strike the bucket wall with a steady ring. By evening, the milk will be strained for drinking or churned into butter. Sheep wait in a nearby pen. One of the chieftain's daughters carries a lamb to its mother to suckle. The flock must stay strong. Goats climb at the pen rails. A boy brings them cabbage leaves and they beg for the treat. The chieftain breathes in the farmyard. Dung and hay, heather in bloom, and the salted sea wind from the fjord. It all smells of life and survival. He then walks to the weaving shed. Inside, a loom stands with stones hanging from the warp. His wife and a thrall girl work the yarn, beating it tight into new cloth. The chieftain pauses at the doorway. The sound of weaving is steady, almost like a chant. The women nod but do not break their focus, for this is important work. Wool shorn last summer was spun into yarn through the winter, and now it is woven into cloth for clothes and sails. Imported flax is used for fine linens. Above them, dyed yarns hang drying. Bright colors splash against the dim light of the shed. One bundle is a rich blue. The woad took well this time, his wife says with pride. True indigo belongs only to kings, but this blue is strong. She tells how they made it, soaking woad leaves in a barrel of stale urine until it fermented, then dipping the wool. The chieftain wrinkles his nose at the thought. The stench is harsh, but the color is worth it. Other skeins show madder red and birch yellow. To hold the colors, the women used wood ash and alum salts. It is smelly work, but without it, the household would have no fine garments. And so, he leaves them to it, knowing the cloth will speak of his family's skill and standing. Next, the chieftain turns toward the forge. The sharp clang of iron is heard across the yard. Sparks leap with each strike. Inside the sod-roofed smithy, heat strikes his face. The smith, a freeman, stands bare-chested, shining with sweat. He hammers a glowing blade on the anvil. The ringing blows fill the air. "Mending Ketil's plowshare?" the chieftain shouts over the noise. "Aye, nearly done," the smith grunts. He lifts the red-hot iron with tongs and plunges it into water. Steam hisses and rolls up in a cloud. On a rack, the chieftain sees the smith's work laid out. There are horseshoes ready for the herd, an iron cauldron patched with rivets, and the patterned blade of a sword reforged in the fire. Here the tools of the farm are made and kept sharp. Scythes, axes, knives. Iron is rare, so nothing is wasted. Every shard is melted down and used again. Next, the smith pulls a plough blade from the water. He studies the edge, which appears to be sharp and clean. Satisfied, he sets it aside to cool. He tells the chieftain, "I'll shoe the ponies later and fix your sword's hilt too." The chieftain nods. A skilled smith is worth silver. His craft keeps the farm alive and the warriors armed. And for now, the chieftain leaves him to his hammer song. Down at the shoreline, 3 men work on the chieftain's longship. It rests on the pebbled strand, 60 feet of oak, tarred black. Fresh sealant shines along its hull. They are replacing worn planks and tightening rope lashings. And mind you, this longship is clinker built, strake upon strake. That is why a Viking ship bends with the waves and does not break. The chieftain runs his hand along the smooth prow. Here, a dragon's head is mounted on voyages, though at home it is removed so as not to disturb the land spirits. He feels excitement in his chest. Summer will bring the sea again. But for now, repairs must be done. One man drives tarred wool into a seam, another taps wooden pegs into place. She will be ready by month's end, Lord, says the shipwright. The chieftain claps him on the back in thanks. From the ship, he looks out over the fjord. The water is still steel grey, and gulls are floating on the swell. On the far side, pine hills climb into mist. The land is quiet, but in his mind, the chieftain sees the ship leaping through storm waves, oars beating in rhythm, carrying men towards strange shores. That day is coming, that's for sure. But for now, the work of the farm holds him. As he turns back, he spots a rider on the track from the north. It is a neighbour, another landowner come early. The sight reminds him of the thing and the local gathering. Today they meet to decide matters of law and honour. He wipes dirt from his hands. Then he strides toward the hall, ready to take his place among them. By late morning, people gather on the Thing field. It's a grassy space near old oak trees. The chieftain arrives on a strong pony, followed by a few huskarls. He climbs down, brushes the dust from his cloak, and studies the crowd. Farmers come on horseback or on foot, some walking since dawn from distant homes. The field grows lively with greetings, clasped arms, and horses tied along the edge. Women and children stand among the men. The Thing is both law and fellowship, and while spirits seem high, tension is in the air. At the center lies the Law Rock. It stands flat and heavy. Beside it stands the Law Speaker in a blue cloak. He is chosen for memory and voice, for he holds all law in his mind. It is his duty to speak the laws aloud so all may know them. Even kings must bow to the law here. So the chieftain nods to the Law Speaker and joins the circle of leaders. As Gothi of this district, his word carries weight. When the crowd swells to 100, the Law Speaker raises his hand. The chatter dies, and he begins to recite. His voice is carrying rules of land and inheritance. The words are passed down from forefathers. Most here cannot read, so this is the only true record. Let it be known, he calls, that boundary stones must not be moved. Any man who moves a stone shall pay 3 marks of silver. The chieftain nods at the old wisdom, for tradition binds the folk together. And so, when the law is spoken, disputes begin. Men step forward, one after another, to make their cases. The first quarrel is small. A farmer claims his neighbor grazed goats on his pasture and cut his hay. The man is thin and sharp in voice, indignant at the insult. The neighbor, on the other hand, is broad and is speaking with heat, claiming that the meadow was his by old agreement. The assembly listens, some grunting, some nodding. The chieftain knows them both, and he frowns, weighing their words. After debate and witness words, the law speaker and chieftain speak together. They judge that the neighbour must pay with 2 sheep and a barrel of ale. This is fair, for fines keep peace without blood. And so the men agree, though their faces are tight. Better this than blades. Then they clasp hands, and the crowd cheers softly. The quarrel is ended, and life turns forward. Then a weight falls on the field. A young man called Ulf steps into the circle. His hand rests on the hilt of his sword. It was a mark of challenge. He points at another man, Bjorn. Ulf's voice is heard far and wide. He slandered my honor, calling me thief before witnesses. The crowd stirs. Among Norsemen, words can wound deeper than steel. A false insult can spark feuds that last generations. And now, Bjorn stands on the far side. He scoffs and calls back. I spoke only truth. You did not return the plough you borrowed. If that is theft, then let it be so. The people murmur, some nodding, some shaking their heads. The chieftain watches with care, knowing this could go beyond fines. Ulf's face burns red. He shouts, You lie! I will not take silver for this. I challenge you to Holmgang to prove my honor. A gasp rises from the ring of men. A duel. Rare at the thing, yet it is an old rite when no other path remains. So the law speaker turns to the chieftain. They read the crowd in silence. By law, Holmgang is still allowed, a trial where the gods judge through combat. Yet, many see it as dangerous and some lands have outlawed it. In Norway, it remains, but men know its cost. So the chieftain steps forward with firm voice. Friends, think carefully. This road leads to death and feud. Is there no other way? Ulf's jaw stays hard, his eyes locked on Bjorn. Bjorn moves uneasily, caught in the eyes of all. To refuse would mark him as Nidinger, a coward without honor. Yet, he had not thought Ulf would carry it this far. Bjorn straightens after a long pause. 3 days from now, at sunup, on the island in the river, I accept. The crowd makes a commotion, for a duel on an islet means there is no escape. Ulf spits on the ground to bind it, and Bjorn gives a short nod. The law speaker repeats the terms, so all know the pact is sealed. This air is caught between honor and dread. An elder from Ulf's kin steps forward, his voice shaking. He warns that if Bjorn does not appear, they will name him Nidinger and take vengeance. All understand the weight of that word. To shirk a duel is shame beyond repair, and in the sagas, curses often follow. In the meantime, however, the chieftain tries again to end it. Bjorn gave Ulf an apology and a token, and this need not come to blood. But pride burns in Bjorn's eyes, and he shakes his head. So the fate of both men now rests with steel, 3 days from this morning. The crowd listens to other disputes, but every mind is stuck on the coming fight. Then a stir rises at the edge of the circle. A farmhand runs in, panting, holding a staff high. On its tip is a horse's head, hacked clean, blood dripping down. Flies gather as the crowd recoils. The chieftain's heart sinks. He knows this thing of old. It is a nidstang, curse pole of scorn. The farmhand shouts the message. Jarl Sigvard sends this need-stang. He calls Eric the Black a coward and oath-breaker. He curses him and drives him from the land. A shudder passes through the gathering. Once again, to raise a curse pole and name a man, Nidingar is a dark blow. But in this case, the chieftain struggles to make sense of it. Sigvard is but a lesser lord, yet bold in his wrath. Eric is not here, perhaps shamed by some past quarrel, perhaps unwilling to face it. Now Sigvard strikes in his absence. All eyes turn to the chieftain. He steps toward the farmhand, his chest tight with the vile staff before him. The horse's head has stiffened, its lips pulled back in a death grin, its yellow teeth bared. The chieftain bends close and reads the runes carved into the staff. They are rough, yet plain. They curse Eric with need, calling on the very spirits of the land to drive him out. It recalls the old tale of Egil Skallagrimson, who once raised a horse head on a pole against King Eirik Bloodaxe and Queen Gunhild, carving runes to turn the land's guardians against them. The chieftain lifts his voice for all to hear. We see this need-stang raised against Eric. Such a curse is grave and terrible. Let all present witness that Sigvard has called Eric a coward before gods and men. The crowd becomes uneasy, some spitting, some making signs to keep away evil. By custom, the pole must face the land of the shamed man. So the farmhand walks to the north edge of the field toward Eric's farm and drives the staff into the earth. The horse's head now stares across the valley, lips pulled back toward the hills of Eric's stead. Old men mutter prayers to Thor and Odin, for such curses stimulate deep fears and call to the hidden spirits of the earth. The chieftain warns them all. Let none touch or move this pole. By law it stands as both challenge and declaration. Yet, in his heart he feels dread, for such dark rites were more common in his grandfather's day. To see one now is a dark reminder that Viking justice lives in both law and shadow. One thing is certain, however, that Eric the Black will hear of this, and until he answers, his name will rot with shame. Indeed, honor holds the order of this world, and shame is a fate worse than death. And so, as the matter is done and over for now, the thing breaks apart. Men and women head back to their camps and horses, gossiping of duels, curses, and judgments. The chieftain stays a moment with the law speaker and a few elders. They agree Eric must be summoned to the next thing to clear his name or bear the weight of exile and fear. For this is Norse law. Part reason, part threat, and part belief in powers beyond sight. At last, the chieftain mounts his pony. He casts one last look at the curse pole, its dead eyes fixed on Eric's lands. He whispers a brief prayer. May the gods guide justice. Then he rides away, knowing his next duty awaits. This day is not done. Before nightfall, blood will flow, but not from combat. The blot is coming, and he must lead the sacrifice. By mid-afternoon, the people gather in a clearing near their homes. A timber hall for worship stands beside an old grove made of oak and ash. The air smells like resin and green growth as the spring blot begins. It is the time to thank the gods for fertile fields and safe seas. The chieftain, who is also a priest, leads the rites. He wears a red wool tunic and a crown of oak leaves to honor the grove. At the center stands a stone altar. It is covered with animal skulls bleached by the sun and wooden figures of the gods. Thor with his hammer, Freyr with his sign of fertility, and Odin with his one stern eye watch over the gathering. A black raven banner flutters nearby, marking Odin's presence. The villagers form a ring around the altar, speaking in low voices. Some bring bowls and jugs of ale for the feast that will follow. And at the chieftain's signal, 2 men lead a boar into the circle. Its white fur bristles and garlands hang from its neck. It snorts and fights the rope, uneasy with what is to come. The boar is sacred to Freyr, the god of earth and harvest. The chieftain raises his hands and calls to the gods. He names Thor, Freyr, Freya, and Odin, asking for their blessings. The people shout, "Hail!" and then they lift horns and weapons to the sky. The chieftain then takes a bowl for blood and a bundle of fir twigs for sprinkling. One man holds the rope tight while another steps forward with a sharp knife. The chieftain then meets the animal's eyes and gives thanks for its sacrifice. Then the knife strikes. Blood runs hot into the bowl as the boar falls with a cry. Some villagers flinch, but most stand steady. They know this act is holy, and they have seen it many times before. The bowl fills up with blood. The chieftain dips the fir branch and shakes it over the altar. Red drops spatter the stone and the carved gods. He walks the circle, flinging the blood on the people. Men and women lift their faces to meet it. It runs across skin and stains clothing. It is raw, but they believe the blood carries the gods' blessing. The chieftain's tunic too darkens with the spray. The boar is then cut apart. Its meat will feed the village, and the choicest cuts will be burned for the gods. And as the fat sizzles on the fire, the smell of pork blends with the smoke of pine. A horn of ale is passed from hand to hand. Each drinks, then pours a little to the ground as an offering. The chieftain leads them in an old prayer. The chant rises and falls, calling on Freyr for crops, and on Thor for rain and protection. Men's deep voices and women's high voices join together beneath the open sky. Sunlight filters through the young leaves above. It touches the blood, the altar, and the faces of the gathered folk. Children peer from behind their mothers' skirts, wide-eyed at the sight. A boy of 10 stares at the altar in wonder. The chieftain touches blood to his brow and says, "For strength." The boy smiles with pride. The rite binds the people to each other, to the land and to the gods. An elder leans on his stick and asks to speak. The chieftain grants him the floor. In a trembling voice, the old man tells of Freya's tears that bring the spring rain. He speaks of Freyr riding Gulenbursti, the golden-bristled boar to bless the fields. The people listen silently and intently. The tale closes with a reminder that the sacrifice is a gift sent to Freyr in Vanaheim. In return, they hope for his gift of fertile land. But not all rites are bright with joy. The chieftain knows there are darker offerings. Human sacrifice, though rare, is remembered in whispers. In Uppsala, every 9th year, 9 of each male kind had to be slain. Men and beasts alike were hung from oak branches to honor Odin, Thor, and Freya. For Odin most of all, who hung himself once for wisdom and hungers for warriors. To him, the gift of a human life is greatest. It was a forbidding sight, a grove turned into a gallows. For now, our chieftain looks toward the mounds that rise beyond the clearing. There lie his ancestors, covered in earth, resting with their treasures. Men with their swords and shields, women with brooches and tools, horses laid by their masters, even whole ships. He recalls the funeral of his uncle, the last chieftain. They placed him in a clinker-built boat with his sword and shield. His goods were stacked around him for the journey. Then they slew his horse and 2 dogs, laying them at his feet. The boat was set in the bog, and a mound was built high above it. Songs of grief and old poems of the clan were sung that day. It was great and solemn, though not the harshest tale he has heard. And now, as roasted boar and bread pass around the fire, he tells a story. It is of the Rus along the Volga, as told by a wandering Arab. The crowd listens in silence, eager for what comes next. A chieftain there had died, and his people gave him a grand farewell. First, they laid him in the earth for 10 days, preparing his burial clothes. And when the time came, one of his slave girls stepped forward. She chose to follow him into death, to serve him in the next world. The listeners murmur, and some women shake their heads in shock. The chieftain speaks on, telling how the Rus raised a wooden platform upon a ship. They laid their dead lord there with fine clothes, gold, silver, food, and drink. They also killed a dog, 2 horses, a rooster, and a hen, thereby placing them beside him. But the darkest part was the fate of the slave girl. They filled her cup with ale, he says, until she was drunk and singing as if blind to what awaited. Faces by the fire tighten, some hard, some grim. The chieftain then tells how an old woman called the Angel of Death led the girl through strange rites. She was taken into tents, and there she lay with several of the Lord's companions. Each man told her to carry his love to the master in the next world. The chieftain goes on. The girl was then lifted 3 times on a wooden frame. She cried out that she saw her master in the afterlife, calling for her. Then the end came. She was brought to the ship where the dead lord rested. Warriors pounded their shields, drowning her cries in thunder. The Angel of Death drove a blade under her ribs. 2 men and a pulled a rope tight around her throat. Her life ended there at her master's side. At once the kin of the dead lord stepped forth with a torch. They set the ship aflame. The fire roared high, devouring man, girl, beast, and treasure together, all sent into the next world in smoke and ash. For a time, the only sound in the hall is the crackle of the hearth fire. One huskarl, whose face is red from drink, lifts his cup. He says with grim humor, "When I die, I'll not ask that of you. A barrel of mead will do." Laughter breaks the silence. The chieftain then ends by saying, "Such was their honor for their lord, that they gave him all. May our own deaths be filled with honor." He sits in thought, knowing that in their lands the days of human sacrifice are fading. The white Christ spreads, and such rites grow rare with every new moon. Yet, All still agree that to die for one's lord is the highest loyalty, and to kill for one's lord is still expected. The rite closes with toasts. Goblets of mead pass hand to hand. The chieftain lifts his horn first to Odin for wisdom and victory. Odin's Skal, he cries, as they all drink deep. Then a toast to Njord and Freyr for peace and harvest, which all share. At last, he takes the braggerful, the cup of honor. Standing tall, he swears his oath. By this cup, I vow we sail this summer and bring back wealth enough to feast all next winter. Or else we meet our ends with glory. The hall erupts with roars and horns as struck against shields. 'Tis both ritual and promise meant to stir hearts. Others follow with their own toasts, each lifting a horn to the memory of kin gone before. The many binds them to the dead who are thought to drink with them still. When the oaths are done, the gathering eases. Men and women eat pork and drink ale. Children chase each other beneath the trees. Some carve meat to take home for later. The chieftain chews on a hunk of roast as it greases his beard. A kinsman leans in with concern, saying, "We have known peace a long while. Do you mean to raid this summer?" The chieftain smiles, sharp as a wolf. "Aye, the ships thirst for salt and blood. Word comes that Northumbria is rich and waiting. Tonight we speak of it at the feast." The kinsman nods. "For raiding is risk, yet also fortune. It keeps their world turning as silver and spoils feed the bond of men. And so, as the sun falls toward late day, folk head back to their homes. The gods have been honored, and the rite is done. What waits now is the hall, with even more food, song, and laughter. And as always when Vikings feast, the fire of kinship will burn beside the sparks of quarrel." The sun dips below the horizon, covering the sky red and gold. The folk gather in the longhouse for the evening feast. Smoke has cleared and torchlight warms the hall. A great fire roars in the hearth, its glow marking every face. Roast pork sparkles with honey. Fish stew simmers with leeks and herbs. Flat bread lies stacked beside crocks of butter and cheese from the stores. Plank tables stretch down the length of the hall. Fresh herbs are scattered on the floor. Each step crushes the leaves, filling the room with their scent. Neighbors arrive with kin and warriors. Old ones sit beside children. 2 traders from afar slip in, drawn by word of the feast. And at the high seat, the chieftain waits with his wife. His cloak is trimmed in fur, with a gilded brooch at his shoulder. His wife wears blue linen with turtle brooches, chains across her chest, amber set in her hair, and before them rests a horn of silver brimming with gold and mead. Thralls hurry to fill horns and cups. Barrels of ale are rolled in, and pitchers of honey wine pass from hand to hand. When the chieftain rises, silence falls. He lifts the drinking horn. "Skal," he calls. "We thank Thor and Freyr for spring's gifts, and we celebrate our bonds. Eat well, drink deep, and let there be joy." He drinks long, and the hall answers with a rumble. "Skal!" they shout, slamming cups together. The feast begins. Platters of boar and lamb are carried down the tables. The carver stands and slices meat with his sayax. First for the high seat, then for the rest. The cuts drip with fat and garlic, a rare and welcome sight after the lean months. Bread soaks up the juices. Bowls of salmon and trout follow, with mustard greens and horseradish. The hall grows quiet as mouths fill. Fingers shine with grease wiped on cloth or licked clean. A housecarl jabs another with his elbow. They race to finish their pork as the others pound the tables with laughter. When the first hunger fades and cups are filled again, the hall turns to song. Silence takes over as a skald rises near the fire. He's lean with hair gone grey at the edges, and he carries a harp. Folk know him well for his gift of verse. He lifts his horn, then begins his tale. The hall listens close, for stories are prized above all. He sings the saga of Hötr the Brave, an ancestor of the chieftain himself. His lines are filled with riddles of words and old kennings. He tells how Hötr crossed the Whale Road to foreign lands. He fought a troll with 5 heads. He won a hoard of gold while Odin watched over the battle. The chieftain swells with pride at the song. Warriors nod and cheer at each turn. Children lean forward, eyes wide, hungry for monsters and treasure. In this way, tales become memory, and memory becomes history. When the saga ends, the mood changes. The hall grows loud, and the boasting begins. This is an old custom where men rise and speak of their deeds and their hopes. It is half truth, half show, but it binds them to their words. One housecarl, broad as an ox, slams down his cup. "I am Thorstein, son of Thorlak," he shouts. "Last summer I split a Saxon skull so deep my axe stuck fast, and I had to free it with his own sword." The hall erupts in laughter and cheers. Thorstein grins, then swears an oath. "This year I will sail west to the Emerald Isle. I will bring back 2 chests of silver, or I will not return at all." The roar of approval shakes the rafters. Another warrior leaps on a bench near to falling. He brags he can outdrink any man here. He swears he will wrestle a bear, should one be found. The crowd jeers and claps as they sit amused and pleased. The chieftain laughs, knowing the worth of such talk. After all, words spoken in the hall may bring about real deeds at sea. Boasts made tonight will be remembered in the morning. A man's honor may rest on the promises he shouted after drink. So the feast binds courage to ale and song, and out of jest and challenge, tomorrow's ventures are born. Now the noise changes again, but this time it's sharper and edged with scorn. The flyting begins, the art of insult and wit. An old warrior named Oddi rises. He's sharp of tongue and quick to mock. He points at young Hakon and laughs. Hakon boasted well, but I recall him squealing like a pig when a little cut was stitched. The hall bursts in laughter. Hakon reddens, but he stands. His voice rings out in verse. Oddi's back bends like his memory. Was it a boar or his drunken breath that dropped him last Yule? The crowd roars, cups slam, and the game begins. The 2 men trade insults in rhyme. Each jab cuts close, but all laugh loud asaf. They accuse one another of cowardice, stinginess, poor looks, and worse. The crowd delights in the wit, pounding tables with glee. But then at last, Oddi lifts his cup. Enough, pup. Your tongue is sharper than I thought. 2 clasp hands and drink. No blood spilled, only laughter this time. But flighting is never without risk. A word too true can spark real anger. The chieftain watches closely, weighing every jest. Next, the hall turns to games and song. Women link arms by the hearth, singing of Sif's golden hair. Their skirts whirl as they spin in a ring. Men stumble into the dance, drawing more laughter. 2 greybeards sit at a board of Hanefataful. One defends the king, the other presses with his attackers. They grumble and argue over every move. A knot of watchers leans in, hanging on each move of the carved pieces. Children play knucklebones on the floor. They toss sheep ankles and wager with feathers and trinkets. And so, as you can see, the room hums with joy, a people at rest after toil. And the ale keeps flowing, and the voices rise higher. 2 men strip to the waist and step into the ring. The crowd circles them, shouting for the match. They grapple in the fire's glow. Sweat runs all over their skin. One hooks a leg, and the other crashes to the dirt. The hall shakes with cheers. Then the chieftain himself stands to test his strength. He calls his brother forth. Together they face the ale barrel. The contest is simple. Lift it or be shamed. And so, a keg still heavy with ale is dragged out. The chieftain squats low, grips the barrel, and pulls with all his strength. His neck veins swell, his face burns red, but he lifts it a few inches. The hall roars once again with cheers. Then his brother steps up and gives it a try. The barrel barely moves. The hall erupts with laughter. The chieftain claps him on the back, hands him a horn and says, "This one's lighter." Around them, the weapons shine in the torchlight. Shields painted in strong colors hang on the walls. Spears and axes lean close, ready if danger comes. On the benches lie a few swords, their scabbards rich with detail. Only men of wealth can afford such blades. Most carry axes or spears, cheaper yet no less deadly. And above the chieftain's seat hangs his pride, a Dane axe with a wide edge. It is called Skull Splitter. Traders in the hall glance at the weapons and whisper to one another. They see that no man here feasts without steel at hand, for even joy carries risk. Halls have seen blood spilled when anger boils, and under the laughter there is tension. The flighting earlier still hangs in the air. Young Hakon drinks with a smile that does not reach his eyes. He hears again Oddi's taunts, though he laughs them off. And across the room, Oddi boasts of his sharp tongue. Hakon's friends try to soothe him, but his pride is cut. Thorstein too feels the sting of mockery. His vow to sail for Ireland drew smirks from doubters who know his weak stomach. However, as we said earlier, such words may seed tomorrow's quarrels. And so, the chieftain senses the unrest. He chooses to turn their minds outward. He rises, calling for silence. "Friends, hear a tale of war," he says. The hall grows quiet, broken only by hiccups and moving feet. His voice is deep as he speaks of Lindisfarne. He recalls when he was young, rowing through mist toward the English shore. Their ship slid silently through the water, oars moving together. They reached the holy men's house as dawn broke. Then they leapt ashore with their blades flashing and the sun rising at their backs. And as he vaunts, he swings an invisible sword, and the hall listens close, and the listeners lean closer. The chieftain speaks of monks in black robes, fleeing in panic. He tells how the Northmen stormed the undefended church. "They called on their god," he growls. "But we showed them the strength of Thor's children." His fist slams the table. He speaks of chalices and gold crosses taken from the altar. The crowd grins at the thought of treasure. He recalls driving cattle down to the ships. He spares no detail of blood. "I struck down a fat priest at the church door. One swing of my axe split his skull like an egg. Cheers explode, horns raised high. A man shouts, 'Let the English pigs remember the axe.'" The chieftain goes on. He tells of a young monk who dared meet his eyes and prayed. "I sent him quick to his god," he says with a smirk. The hall laughs darkly. The chieftain then spread his arms wide. "We threw their altar stones into the sea. We emptied their chests of silver. Mugs pound the tables. Pride fills the hall. Even the women smile, pleased at the wealth such raids bring." Then he adds more. "We took thralls too, a dozen strong youths to row our benches. That one-eyed thrall who tends sheep outside was once a monk. His eye was the price of his defiance." Laughter rises again. All know his words are true. Slaves are rich prizes after all. Irish and English captives often spend their lives toiling on Norse farms. Now the mood in the hall grows hot with pride. Quarrels are forgotten for now. The men revel in shared victories. Thorstein and others clap shoulders, eager for summer raids. The night grows late. Fires crackle and the mead flows. Songs rise, with all joining in the chorus. One song mocks the Frankish king who shook at the sight of Viking sails. He shakes in his boots, the fat goose of Francia. They shout, and laughter shakes the rafters. The chieftain's wife leads a lewd song of Loki's tricks. The hall bursts into more bawdy laughter. Some slip into the night for secret embraces. Others slump on benches, still holding empty horns as sleep takes them. The feasting hall beats like the heart of the people tonight. Here they boast, plot, laugh, and sometimes kindle grudges. Hakon, still stung from insult, drinks deep. The mead loosens his tongue. He rises, swaying, and calls to Oddi across the hall. "Old man, you have years, but do you have courage? Will you face me in a holmgang this summer, or swallow your words now?" The hall falls silent. A challenge like this, across the feast table, carries danger. Oddi stands drunk and red-faced. Before he can answer, the chieftain's voice cuts through. "No blood in my hall tonight." His eyes fixes first on Hakon, then on Oddi. "And you, no more barbs. We are kin." But the air still holds tension. Oddi mutters, "Hot blood of youth, no insult meant," and sinks back to his seat. Hakon's friends pull him down by the arm. The chieftain signals for more mead. A drum and flute rise in tune to bury the quarrel. For now the storm is calmed. But the chieftain makes note. Those two must be steered, perhaps forced to labor together, so that pride does not turn to feud. By the end of the night, the chieftain stands once more. Tonight we shared food and drink as one people, he says. Let quarrels die by morning. Out there. He gestures into the dark beyond the door. Enemies wait. They fear us only if we stand as one. Now rest, and may Thor guard this hall till dawn. The crowd lifts their horns one last time. Skál! Thunders through smoke and rafters. Some lie down on benches and floors, cloaked against the chill. Others stumble home to their huts. The chieftain lowers himself onto his high seat, heavy with mead and weariness. The fire has fallen to coals, glowing red in the pit. Snoring begins among the sleepers. The chieftain's wife lays a hand on his arm, and they share a quiet smile. It has been a good feast, one that will be remembered. But as the night deepens, another mood creeps in. Shadows spread far and wide. Old fears reawaken. Even in laughter, Vikings never forget that the world holds spirits and foes, and the hour of night belongs to both. Outside the longhouse, the spring night is cold and without a moon. The stars shine above like nails hammered into a dark roof. A wind moves through the pine trees on the hills. From far off comes the cry of a wolf, answered by another. A warning that beasts roam beyond the firelight. Inside, most are asleep where they can find space. The chieftain, however, does not sleep. He leans against a post with a blanket across his shoulders. He knows that after a feast, a hall full of armed men is never safe. So he rests with eyes half shut, listening to the night. The fire is low and shadows blink over the spears and shields on the walls. In the dark, shapes twist and deceive. His eyes are locked on a spear and shield, yet the shadows make them seem a crouching figure. He blinks hard and moves. As a child, he feared such shapes as Draugr, the restless dead. Many still believe that some corpses rise again, filled with hatred, haunting the living. Every village has tales of them. The chieftain himself once fought a man believed to be such a revenant, a feud killer who hunted enemies even after death. They said he did not rest until his head was cut from his body and the corpse burned. The chieftain shivers in the dark, thinking of it. Draugr are said to have strength beyond men. Some can change form, some drift like smoke through cracks. The sagas speak of one named Glam. He rode the rooftops at night, shaking the beams, killing livestock in their pens. But then, at last, Grettir the Strong wrestled him and cut off his head. But even in death, Glam cursed him with his last stare. Such stories are told on nights like this, when the fire dies low and sleep does not come. A few cots away, a grandmother whispers to children still awake. She tells of the Haugbuar, the mound dwellers. If a greedy man is buried with treasure, she says, and no one watches him, he may remain in his grave to guard it. And woe to the thief who enters such a tomb, for the dead will walk. The boy gasps, and the grandmother soothes him. Remember, Draugr cannot stand the hammer's sign or the bite of iron, so keep your amulet close. The chieftain's hand goes to his own hammer pendant without thinking as he overhears her words. Many here wear such charms, carved with runes or shaped like Thor's weapon. They believe these guard against trolls and spirits. On the longhouse doorframe, runes are scratched deep. The chieftain himself carved marks for elf warding and for Thor's might after hearing of neighbors troubled by elves. It seemed wise. After all, In a world where the unseen presses close, such protections are common sense. And the night is full of fear for those who face it alone. Ghosts, spirits, and dark fates may awaken in the minds of men, but within the hall there is a circle of safety. It is shaped by custom, by loyalty, and by weapons close at hand. The Norse know the dead may walk, and the chains of fate may tighten at any hour. Yet they face such things as they face all else, together, wary and unafraid. And soon, the east will pale, roosters will call, and the chieftain will rise once more. He will wash his face, comb his hair, and turn again to his work. There will be labor, conflict, and joy. But for now, in the heart of the night, he rests. He lives as a Viking lives, caught between the grind of daily tasks and the memories of story. And so in one day we have seen it all. The rites at dawn, the feast at dusk, the quiet dread of night, the laws of men, the signs of gods, the blood and the laughter. This is his world, and for a short while it sleeps.